everyone. Happy Thursday. Double check what day it was. So excited to have you all here for another class in our series, What Can I Cook With? My name is Hannah, and I am a nutrition educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County. And you're here today again in my kitchen, and I'm so happy to have you all here. So a few weeks ago, we started a new kind of iteration of this series where instead of taking pantry staples and showing you some different recipes for them, I'm starting to cook with different seasonal ingredients and seasonal produce that you all might be seeing a lot more often. It's July right now if you're watching this at a later date, but some different really fresh, delicious produce that you might be getting in CSA boxes from farm stands at farmers markets that is really going to be at the peak of its flavor and the peak of its quality. So last week we talked about beets, and this week we're going a slightly different route, and we're going to be talking about actually an herb, and that herb is parsley. So you can see I have some parsley here. I think this is the curly leaf variety. It's not as curly as other bunches I've seen of this variety, but it's very different from the flat leaf parsley. But either would work well for this recipe because we are making falafel. And I'm very excited because this is one of the recipes that always seemed very intimidating to me and is actually really pretty easy, as I'm going to show you right now. And since it's got a basis of chickpeas or garbanzo beans, it's got all those great benefits that beans offer. So a lot of fiber, they're high in protein, they're low in saturated fat, and they've got a bunch of vitamins and minerals in them. So as always, love cooking with these. And then we're just going to get a ton of really great, bright flavors from the parsley. I think fresh parsley is one of the few herbs, that and basil maybe, that I can just be fine eating a whole bunch of raw in a salad or something like that. It's not too overpowering, but it just feels really nice and fresh. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the piece of equipment that we need for this is either a blender or a big food processor. So I've got my blender here. So into it, I'm going to add 1 cup of garbanzo beans. So an important note about the chickpeas or the garbanzo beans is you want to use beans that were dried and soaked. So these ones I covered in water last night and I let soak overnight. I've heard that if you use the canned variety, your patties will just get way too mushy. So these ones, you don't cook them at all. They're going to cook in the oven when we bake our falafel. But right now, all I did was soak them for 24 hours. So this was a cup of dried, and it comes out to be about 1 3/4 cup now that it's been soaked and absorbed all of that good water. So you can go ahead and add this in. Try not to let any escape. All right, and then I'm going to add in my parsley, our star ingredient. So it's about 1 cup packed, which can be kind of hard to do, but just do your best. You'll see it's a little bit more than a cup when it's kind of all fluffed up and full of air. We'll go ahead and add that in. And you do want to make sure that you're getting, it's okay to have like little bits of stems, but you do want to mostly pull those stems off. They can be a little bit too overpowering and can sometimes be a little bit of an odd texture, maybe a little bit too tough. All right, so we got that in here. I'm going to add in some garlic. So I've got 4 cloves here. And just to make it a little bit easier on my blender, make sure the garlic gets really evenly distributed, I'm just going to give them just a really rough chop. You can see the pieces, they're not getting too small. But I don't want to have kind of this big bite of garlic in my falafel, or at least not very much. Okay. And I know I always mention this, but I am keeping an eye on the chat. Sometimes I do a better job than other times, but if you have any questions or comments, suggestions, please feel free to drop them in there. So this was 4 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to add this up into my blender. These last little bits. Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I've got some additional spices that I'm going to add. So I've got some ground cumin, and I'm going to add 1/2 teaspoon of this. I'm gonna add a few shakes of crushed red pepper, because y'all know me, I like some spicy food. So just a little bit. I don't want it to overpower any of the flavors, but just kind of give your mouth a nice burning sensation. All right, and then I'm gonna add some black pepper. And you can be pretty liberal with the black pepper. So again, with the black pepper, just kind of going by eye. It would maybe be about a half a teaspoon, but try it a couple different times. If you're not a big fan of black pepper, just put a crank or two, and then you can add more if you decide you need a little bit more. And then I'm going to add in 1/8 teaspoon of salt. If you are on a low sodium diet, I think you can omit the salt, and it doesn't result in that different of a flavor. I like to have it a little bit. It does enhance the falafel a little bit, kind of brings out the parsley flavors. But again, no sweat if you want to leave it out. And then I'm going to add a tablespoon of olive oil. And I should mention, I did already preheat my oven to 375. I think I gave you a little bit of a preview before that we are going to be baking these falafel. Sometimes in many restaurants, they are actually fried or pan fried, but we're going to kind of go in a different route. And these will be a little bit lighter. They won't kind of feel as oily as they sometimes might. And then you are just kind of reducing your oil intake, which is great. We are going to be using olive oil. You see I just added some in there, and I do have a fairly generous coating on my pan. This will help get some crispiness on the tops and bottoms of our falafel. Again, olive oil is one of our heart-healthy fats. We don't want to be eating a lot of it because fats do have a lot of calories, but in moderation, it is part of a healthy diet, as are most things. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and blend this. You might want to turn your sound down, or maybe I can just, I'm afraid I'm gonna mute myself and then forget to turn myself back on. So I hope this gave you an opportunity to turn your volume down. And I'm just gonna pulse it. Now I'm just going to go ahead and kind of stir it around a little bit. I'm actually going to take it off so I can get better leverage. But I'm just moving it around. Make sure it's getting fairly evenly blended. It's not going to end up like a smoothie where it's all kind of blended into one piece. But we do want to make sure that it breaks up enough that there's moisture that we'll be able to pack our falafel together. And also that the pieces of chickpeas are small enough that they bake through and they get nice and soft and tender and don't remain kind of these fried crispy chunks. So let me blend it again a little bit more and I'll show you what I mean. So again, you might want to mute yourself, or not mute yourself, but turn your volume down. Mute me. I think it's going to need one more stir before it's ready to shape. And this is like the longest part of the process. I think if you have a food processor, it might be a little bit easier. It might go a little bit faster. The pieces won't kind of get stuck down to the bottom like they do in my blender. But the food processor I have, if you saw when I used it last time, is about this big. So it would not work for this. You can also double this recipe and make more for a crowd, or after you bake the falafel, you can freeze them. And then in the future, you can defrost them and bake them up until they're crispy again. And it's a great thing to have in your freezer. I usually at least have a couple in there. If I want one for lunch, want a couple for lunch, or something a little more last minute. It's a nice bit of protein and very fresh in there. Okay. You can see it's getting there. I'm going to pulse it one more time. I'm pretty sure that's going to be it. And then we will be set to move on. Stick some of the stuff to the side there. All right, yes, this we can work with. I'm gonna pull my blade out. Let's make sure I'm scooping. I hate having food wasted on the sides of bowls and things like that. So as best as we can. Okay. Then you can see this is kind of what it looks like. And I can tell there are kind of some big chunks of chickpeas in here. You're never going to be able to get it blended super uniformly. Well, you might be able to. I don't think I would be able to. And that's just going to be fine. I'll show you. They're not too big, and I don't think it's really going to affect our falafel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and angle you down again. So I've got my baking sheet right here. Maybe you can get a little bit better of an idea about how much oil is on here. You know, it's just enough to kind of generously coat it. So then I can start shaping my patties. And the size, again, is kind of up to you. I do kind of like a loose handful here, and then just kind of shape it in a little patty shape. And their little size makes them a great for like an appetizer or something like that. Okay. And you can see it holds together pretty well. Once they bake, they will hold together even better. So just be kind of gentle with your little falafel babies until they come out of the oven. Let me just shape the rest of these real quick. And you'll see I am making them fairly flat. This will help them kind of cook a little faster. I like mine on the crispier side anyway, so it's maximizing the surface area that is touching our baking sheet. If your falafel aren't sticking together, if they're too dry, you can add a little bit more olive oil. Mine aren't sticking together too well, but I think it's going to be just fine. And you can put these fairly close together. This is a fun one if you have kids who are able to shape into patties, to get them involved in this part too. As you can see, it is a pretty messy experience, but those are some of the most memorable. This is why it's kind of great to double your batch, so you only have to kind of go through this mess once and get twice the food out. Good enough for maybe about 2 more. And again, you could make these a little bit smaller, a little bit bigger if you wanted to. Oops, I lied. I have enough for 3 more. And I'm just going to kind of try to scrape up these pieces if I can. So again, this is just a really great recipe for using up a lot of parsley. A lot of times they'll come in, you know, those really big bunches, and you might only need a little bit for a garnish. This is a great way to use up the rest of it. When we eat falafel, we usually have them as part of like Mediterranean bowls, we've called them. So usually we'll have a base of spinach or romaine lettuce, and everyone will get a cup of falafel on top. And then I usually set up some sort of like bar. I'm a big fan of kind of create your own dinner experiences. Okay, let me go wash my hands and I'll be back to finish telling you that story. Because I know you all are on the edges of your seats to hear what I put in my Mediterranean bowls. But okay, let me pop these in the oven. These are gonna go in for about 12 minutes for this size, and then I'm gonna take them out, flip them, and show you what that looks like. You know, I'm gonna start off with 9 minutes. These ones are a little bit flatter than they normally are. Okay, so as I was saying, along with in the Mediterranean bowl bar, we have the base of romaine or spinach, or even some kale. Then I always like to put like sliced cucumbers, Kalamata olives. If you've ever seen those, Kalamata with a K, usually I think. But they're kind of more of like an oblong. I can't make my fingers look like it, but an oblong olive. They are kind of a lighter brown. They're much like tangier and stronger in flavor. Sliced cucumbers, sliced tomatoes, lots of veggies, a lot of bright, fresh things. And I always do like to have some sort of sauce to go along with them. So hummus is a really good option if you are a fan of hummus. You can also make a Greek yogurt-based dip, and this one is loosely based on tzatziki. Have you ever seen that? It's Tzakiki. I'm not good at spelling out of my head. But so if you ever see it at a restaurant, that's what it is. And it's basically a cucumber yogurt dip. And it's really beautiful. So I'm using some Greek yogurt. I made this myself. If you're interested, you can make it in a slow cooker or in an oven or in a yogurt maker, Instapot, Ninja, any of those things. The video is up on the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County webpage on our nutrition resources site. So you can check it out there. I like making it myself just because it can be a whole lot cheaper. I can get, 2 of this size for the cost of a gallon of milk. And I can make sure that there's no added sugars or flavors or anything like that. I just kind of get the consistency, the texture, and the flavor that I like. So anyways, so I have my Greek yogurt. I have about 2/3 of a cup here. And I do recommend using your Greek yogurt because it will be thicker than a normal yogurt. So if you just have normal yogurt, that's totally fine. Just put a clean dishcloth in a strainer, and then you can put your yogurt in it and drain out some of the excess whey. You can collect the whey if you like. I like using it in baked goods. So if I'm making like pizza dough, I'll use the whey instead of the water. I've also heard that you could maybe use it for plants and things like that, but I would definitely do some research on that or contact our Master Gardener helpline just to get some clarification on that. I have a feeling that since it is kind of the byproduct of dairy and of milk, if you add it to your plants and it gets warm, you might not start to smell so beautiful. Okay. So I've got my yogurt in here. And I've got 2 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to press them. I know there's a couple schools of thought on how good these pressers are. I feel like I don't notice a huge enough difference to not use it, and it does make my life so much easier. So I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of flavor for this convenience. Except it is pretty tricky sometimes. And that was a big clove, so I'm really struggling here. There we go. All right, so a lot of garlic, you do not need to use this much. And then I've got a half of a lemon. Notice I did already zest it. I think I mentioned on here before that a great tip that I learned recently from a colleague is when you have lemons, zest them, and you can freeze the zest for use in later dishes. And I thought that was so smart. I always hate wasting that part of the lemon because it always seems like something you might need, and you're like, why do I buy a whole lemon for the zest? And you will already have it. And then with this part, I think I've mentioned before, I like to throw it down the garbage disposal. My mother recently let me know that she likes to add baking soda to this lemon and then use it to scrub a stainless steel sink, which I think is super cool. And then you just throw that whole thing down the garbage disposal and run it. Definitely make sure that you have a working garbage disposal. And so there's a couple of rapid fire tips for you. So that was just half of one lemon. I'm going to add it to my garlic. And the reason why I'm adding it to the garlic is because the lemon will help kind of take some of the acidity, some of the bite out of the garlic and mellow it out so you're really just getting all that really good garlic flavor. So we're just going to let that sit for just a couple minutes. It helps especially because we will be putting the raw garlic into our tzatziki sauce. So I'm going to add a couple herbs and spices. So I've got some crushed red peppers. So maybe about that much. I like adding it to a lot of things. And also a tablespoon of olive oil. This will help it be really creamy and kind of decadent. I'm actually going to use a scant cup of olive oil, or a scant tablespoon of olive oil. And that just means I didn't fill it up all the way. It was kind of like right below. You might see it sometimes, a scant cup of sugar. Usually when I'm baking, a lot of times you can reduce the amount of sugar in a recipe by up to a third or a third of a cup. Often I will do that, or I will just use a scant amount of whatever it is called for. Oh my goodness. I don't know if y'all could tell I was delaying a bit because I have a special CSA delivery with my cucumbers that is coming in to me, and it just arrived. So yay. Thank you. All right. So I got my cucumbers from my CSA box. I am just going to use one today. So the lucky one. And then I've got my box grater. Let me grab a clean cutting board. And I'm just going to go ahead and take off one end of this. And then I will grate this on the largest holes of my box grater. You can take out the seeds if you want to. Maybe if you have a cucumber that has a lot of seeds and just a little bit of flesh, you can go ahead and scoop out those seeds. It will help it be not as watery. But if you are using a Greek yogurt, that extra moisture is actually pretty helpful. So just give it a good grate. And it smells really, really good. I love the smell of cucumber. It's very faint, but it smells so nice and fresh. So the end that I put in my compost, you could also add that to your water and get a little bit of cucumber infusion going on. Again, just making sure that you're using a really clean cucumber that you washed, but also that you're getting cucumbers that you know where they are coming from. So you're not going to have a lot of pesticides or other kind of residues on them that could seep into your water if you don't give it a good enough wash. So that's what I really like. One of the things I really like about getting the CSA is I do know the farmer and I do have a relationship with where my vegetables are coming from. So I would feel very comfortable putting this into my water. Okay. So now we're just going to add all these cucumber pieces into our bowl of yogurt. And I am just going to give this amount just kind of a light squeeze. Can you see how much liquid is already coming out of these? And there's our falafel. So it's probably not I would highly recommend if you have a sink and you're not trying to do this in front of a camera, do this over your sink. Again, just give it a good squeeze. And then go ahead and add it in. Let me check on my falafel, and then I will mix this up. Hey, if y'all have been watching these videos for a while, you'll probably know that I normally forget a pot holder. Please be proud of me because I do have one on hand today. So I know I forgot a cutting board already. Woo! Oh, smells good. Can you see how much brighter green these are right now? Perfect. So let me grab one of the other things that I clearly forgot in my excitement over remembering a pot holder. And we're just going to flip these. Okay, so depending on, I actually think an offset spatula is going to be the best call for this. So we're just flipping these over. You can see I think you can see it. They're holding together a lot better now. They've got kind of cooked. So just a couple little flips. Oops, I jinxed myself because that one I turned too hard and it did crack, but that's okay. It's going to be super delicious. So one other thing that I've seen a lot of cooks add to this, which you absolutely could, is half of a red onion that you could just, rough chop again. And so now this is going to go back in the oven. I should know not to tip this, but we'll go back in the oven and get it cooked on the other side. So anyways, you could add half of a red onion if you wanted some of that flavor in there. All right, so now I'm going to set it for 9 minutes before. I think I'll do 10 minutes on this side. One of the great things about this recipe is you don't have to worry about getting it up to a certain temperature because there are no animal products in the falafels. But we do just want to make sure that our chickpeas are getting soft enough. And so mostly you can just tell by the falafels will be kind of golden like you just saw, a darker green. They will be nice and crispy. All right. And then here is the cucumber yogurt dip. And I almost forgot, I need to add my garlic and my lemon now. I'll just go ahead and add all that in. And we're going to give it a good mix, and this will help it be more kind of a dipping sauce. But this is great spooned on top. The Greek yogurt also is going to have a lot of protein. It's going to have a lot of calcium, which helps us, build and maintain strong bones and teeth. And the cucumbers, you're getting some veggies in there, so some fiber, some vitamins, some minerals, but really just some great taste. All right, so the falafel is just going to be in there, again, I said, for about 8 more minutes, but I won't make you sit here and watch me do cleanup while those bake. If you have any questions or want to see a finished picture, you can go ahead and message us on Facebook, our Facebook page, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County. If you are in Jefferson County region, we are launching a new cooking Facebook group that's going to help kind of build community around the food system here in Jefferson County. So you can go ahead and take a look for that. It's on our Facebook page, but it's also called Cooking Time, and time is spelled T-H-Y-M-E. Unfortunately, right now, it's just for Jefferson County residents. Hopefully, maybe in the future, we'll be able to expand, but keep sending us questions, send us requests for if you have any other seasonal produce you want to learn how to cook with. Awesome. Thanks so much for cooking with me. If you make this, send us a pic. Let me know how you think your falafel turned out. We'll see you again next week.